Hello, good evening. I'm Dr. Rohan Krishnan, and you're watching Medical Dialogues Presents Health Perspective. In today's episode of Perspective, we are going to discuss about the medical aspect of the medical legal cases which is happening in this country. We'll put light upon how to protect ourselves from medical legal cases, what are these medical legal cases, and how do we doctors save ourselves from such cases, and what to do when things like this happen. To discuss this, we have with us Shri Karanjot Singh Mainee, who is our lawyer in Supreme Court and who has the chamber of Karanjot Singh Mainee, provides a one-point solution to all legal requirements, and he's a seasoned dispute resolution practitioner skilled in commercial disputes and arbitration, civil and commercial litigation, medical legal cases, white collar crimes. He regularly appears before the Supreme Court of India, the High Court of Delhi, and other judicial, quasi judicial forums in Delhi and NCR. He has devised, drafted, filed, represented, and got favorable orders for clients in multiple commercial, criminal, civil, and service matters in Delhi and NCR. He has successfully represented accused persons and a major TV channel in the 2G spectrum matter before Mr. O.P. Saini in the Patiala House Court. He has consulted and advised doctors and hospitals on all aspects of medical legal requirements and other legal advisory. He has successfully represented and protected the interest of two major PSUs in the High Court of Delhi and the Supreme Court of India. I welcome you, Mr. Karanjot Singh Mainee ji. Very thanks for joining us.
Hi, Rohan. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to Medical Dialogues. This is a privilege, and I'm very happy to be here.
To directly come to the topic, I would like to ask the very first question: that what is negligence, and how does it fit in the medical space? What are some common causes of medical negligence?
So, Rohan, to begin with your answer, let this be a three-part answer for a three-part question. Let us discuss what negligence is. Negligence essentially means that there is a duty of care. There is a breach in that duty, and that breach leads to some damage. There is a proximate nexus between the breach and the damage. Now, let us understand this in the concept of a medical practitioner and its patient. When a patient comes to a doctor and the doctor agrees to see the patient, to treat the patient, there is an implied duty of care that is imposed on the doctor. Now, the patient which has gone to the doctor will presume that the doctor, if he's taken my case, if he's going to treat me or she's going to treat me, then that doctor is fairly competent or reasonably competent and knows how to treat me properly. The second thing, so this casts the duty of care. The second thing is the breach in that duty. Now, let us say, for example, something happens or there is some commission or omission on part of the doctor that leads to a damage. We see this regularly with anesthesiologists and OBGYNs. I mean, they don't necessarily happen, but this is what people claim. So, if there is a loss of life or if there is a loss of limb, then there needs a direct relation between the actions of the doctor and that damage, that loss of life or loss of limb. If there is a direct correlation, then we can say that yes, the doctor has been negligent or the medical practitioner has been negligent and this negligence would lead to some sort of an action. अगर मैं आम भाषा में समझाऊं दोस्त, तो अगर कोई पेशेंट एक डॉक्टर के पास जाता है और वो लेट अस से फॉर एग्जांपल पेट दर्द लेकर गया है, वो अगर एक कॉम्पिटेंट डॉक्टर के पास जाता है और वो डॉक्टर कहता है कि हाँ, आई एम कॉम्पिटेंट इनफ, माय डिग्रीज एंड माय एक्सपीरियंस qualify me to treat you, give you some medication, to give you some prognosis, then there is that relationship that develops between the patient and the doctor, where the patient is implicitly putting his faith or her faith in the medical practitioner. अब अगर उस ट्रीटमेंट में, उस प्रोग्नोसिस में जो मेडिकेशन दी है उसमें उसकी वजह से अगर पेशेंट को कुछ लॉस होता है, लेट अस से फॉर एग्जांपल the the medicine that the doctor's given reacts badly to the patient. And despite knowing that, let us say that this patient was allergic to ibuprofen, या वो asthmatic था तो उसको ibuprofen नहीं देनी थी, और वो दे दी, and there is a adverse reaction to that medication or that treatment, then the medical practitioner, the doctor, or the hospital are uh, they can be claimed, they can be said to be negligent.
Okay. I would like to ask that what are the various remedies available to aggrieved patients, relatives of the patient, or in case of medical negligence against the doctors, and what are the implications of such?
Now, this is a large question, Rohan. You'll have to understand. Uh, Primarily, there are three avenues that a patient can approach or can go through against a doctor, and all three of them can run simultaneously. ऐसा नहीं होता कि अगर मैंने एक रेमेडी उठाई तो बाकी दोनों हट जाती हैं, बिकॉज all three of these actions have a different outcome. The final outcome is separate. How we like to put it is, the first one is a civil remedy. Sorry, was there, did you say something?
No, 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 nothing.
So the first one is a civil remedy. A civil remedy is what we generally call people going to the consumer courts. तो जब आप कंज्यूमर कोर्ट में जाते हैं, आप कंज्यूमर प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट में जाते हैं, एंड यू से दैट दिस डॉक्टर हैज नॉट ट्रीटेड मी appropriately or within the prescribed protocol or with the standard of care that was required, and you are asking for some sort of compensation because of their negligence or malfeasance or deficiency that led to a damage to you. So this is the first civil action. Civil action is purely tortious in nature, and it is only for compensation or penalty to the doctor. इसमें सिर्फ monetary compensation की बात होती है. Now, if the consumer courts, after hearing both sides, come to a conclusion that yes, the doctor was in fact negligent, then the consumer court, the maximum that the consumer court can do is grant you monetary compensation. वो पैसे सिर्फ पैसे के ही टर्म्स में आपको एक फेवरेबल ऑर्डर दे सकते हैं. The second one is what we like to call as an administrative action. An administrative action is when a patient approaches the state medical council and says that, see, this is how I was treated. X, Y, Z are the reasons why this service was deficient, or the doctor was negligent or was deficient in his services, or there was some malfeasance in the doctor's treatment. And basis that, the state commission, the state medical council issues notice to the doctor, a show cause notice. You reply to that show cause notice, and after hearing both sides, they judicially determine whether or not the doctor was negligent, or for that matter, the hospital was negligent, the staff. इसमें सिर्फ कॉम्पनसेशन की बात नहीं आती है, इसमें आपके प्रोफेशनल लाइसेंसेस पे भी पाबंदी लग सकती है. लाइक सेवरल टाइम्स वी सी दैट द मेडिकल काउंसिल्स will either suspend your license, or they will rescind your license, or when it is not a very big issue or it is not a very big infraction, they issue something that we call a censure, which essentially means a warning to the doctor कि आपने इस बार तो किया, आप आगे से ना करिएगा. And then the third one is obviously the criminal action. Now, the criminal action only happens when there is actually a loss of life or loss of limb. If it's loss of life, then a doctor can be prosecuted under IPC 304A, which is death by negligence. So there has to be negligence and there has to be a death. Both of those things need to be connected, and then an FIR can be lodged. Now, the law has developed in such a manner that just because a patient goes to the police station and says कि जी मेरा patient या मेरा relative इनके पास patient था, उन्होंने treatment दिया, उसकी death हो गई, तो the police cannot directly file an FIR. What happens is, the moment an FIR is lodged, Rohan, the wheels or the cogs of the criminal judicial system start churning. एक FIR सिर्फ एक कोर्ट ही खत्म कर सकता है. तो और होता क्या है कि ये FIRs खत्म होने में समय लग जाता है. So the process becomes the penalty for the doctor. The process becomes the punishment for the doctor. So, what the Supreme Court in this judgment of Jacob Matthews versus State of Punjab said that unless there is an expert committee or an expert medical body that comes to a finding that yes, the doctor has in fact been negligent, or yes, the doctor has in fact uh, practiced in malfeasance, only then can an FIR be lodged. And of course, once the FIR is lodged, then the entire process starts. That is a longer process. If you want, we can explain that. We can talk about that also in a little bit. तो ये
ओके,
तीन essential आपके avenues
मतलब
रहते
जब
हैं.
तक एक एक्सपर्ट बॉडी जब तक रेकमेंड नहीं करेगी तब तक एफआईआर ऐसे नहीं हो सकता है
बिल्कुल.
नेग्लिजेंस पे.
और अगर हुई है रोहन, तो होता क्या है, a lot of police officers आर ऑल्सो वेरी ट्रिगर हैप्पी. ठीक है ना. अगर कभी बाय चांस FIR लॉज हो जाती है, तो द फर्स्ट थिंग दैट वी टेल डॉक्टर्स इज डू नॉट पैनिक. दैट FIR इज राइप टू गेट क्वॉश्ड. क्वॉशिंग का मतलब आप उसको उस FIR को लेकर हाईकोर्ट जा सकते हैं, क्योंकि क्वॉशिंग सिर्फ हाईकोर्ट कर सकती है. आप हाईकोर्ट जा सकते हैं. हाईकोर्ट में जाकर आप कहेंगे कि जी देखिए, दिस FIR हैज बीन लॉज्ड इन कॉन्ट्रावेंशन ऑफ द डायरेक्शंस लेड डाउन बाय द सुप्रीम कोर्ट एंड जेकब मैथ्यूज, प्लीज क्वॉश दिस. और जब एक एक्सपर्ट बॉडी की रिपोर्ट आ जाएगी और अगर वो मेरे अगेंस्ट होगी, तब FIR चालू हो सकती है.
ओके,
एंड
अच्छा.
मोस्ट कोर्ट्स आर वेरी प्लायबल.
यस. अच्छा, what should a doctor do in case a complaint is filed against a doctor or a particular hospital? What should be the first line of action?
The first line of action is you do not panic. So I'll give you some context why I say this. We work with a lot of doctors. We work with doctors all across the country. Ron, I think I lost you.
No, I'm here.
Huh. So we talk to doctors all across the country. We consult them on a regular basis. In fact, we've got a couple of team members who are talking to doctors day in and day out. And the one thing that we've realized is the moment they get a notice, even a simple legal notice, they start panicking. See, that legal notice has no legal value per se. जरूरी नहीं है किसी ने अगर आपको लीगल नोटिस भेज दिया है अपने वकील के थ्रू, तो आपको वो पैसा देना पड़ेगा या आपको उसको उसके साथ कॉम्प्रोमाइज करना पड़ेगा. दीज थिंग्स हैव नो लीगल स्टैंडिंग व्हाटसोएवर. मैं इसमें जो मर्जी लिख दूं. सो डोंट पैनिक. रेफर टू योर either your professional indemnity insurers, the aggregators, or if you've got lawyers, you refer to your lawyers. And the first thing that your lawyer, a half decent competent lawyer, will tell you is this is absolutely hogwash. This has no forbearing. You don't need to worry. We will file a comprehensive reply. And we will make sure that we will ensure in our best capacity that this does not go forward. Now, let us say that this does go forward. There is a police complaint, or there is a consumer complaint, or there is a complaint before the State Medical Commission. In that case also, what you need is not to try and handle these things on your own. Reach out to a lawyer, because lawyers know what they're doing. Lawyers know what to do in which circumstance. अगर कंज्यूमर कोर्ट से दोस्त आपको नोटिस आया है, तो वो एक टाइम बाउंड मैनर होता है. तो आपको 30 दिन के अंदर जवाब फाइल करना ही करना होता है. तो जल्द से जल्द अपने वकील से बात करें, उसको वो सारे के सारे डॉक्यूमेंट्स प्रोवाइड करें जिसकी उसको जरूरत होगी एक जवाब बनाने के लिए, और वो जवाब कंज्यूमर कोर्ट में इंश्योर करें कि 30 से 45 दिन के अंदर अंदर फाइल हो. नहीं तो क्या होता है, द लॉ अगेन इज वेरी क्लियर. इफ यू डोंट फाइल इट इन द फर्स्ट 45 days, then your right is closed, and then you have to file an appeal, and that becomes a longer issue. और अगर आप नहीं फाइल करेंगे, then the consumer court ends up passing an order without hearing you. Now, that is not something you want, especially in circumstances where the district and the state consumer forums are not manned by doctors. The National Commission, although has one doctor, but most district and state consumer commissions, where most of your medical negligence cases lie, do not have doctors or people with a medical background manning them. तो उनको तो नहीं पता ना, जब तक डॉक्टर उन्हें बताएगा नहीं, जब तक डॉक्टर का वकील उन्हें बताएगा नहीं कि this is the actual facts and circumstances, this is what the medical literature says, this is what the treatment was, and this treatment was as per the prescribed protocols. Similarly, जब पुलिस का आपको फोन आता है, आपने घबराना नहीं है, यू कॉल योर लॉयर, और इन फैक्ट इफ अ पुलिस ऑफिसर, इफ यू नो यू आर इन द राइट, अगर आपको पता है आपने कुछ गलत नहीं किया, एंड अ पुलिस ऑफिसर डज इन फैक्ट कॉल यू एंड सेज कि जी आप अपने ये डॉक्यूमेंट्स लेकर थाने आइए, ये बात दिमाग से निकाल दें. इफ इट इज अ केस ऑफ नेग्लिजेंस, nobody can just pick you up and put you in jail. Never will this happen. At least not legally will this happen that a police officer calls you to the police station and arrests you without a warrant. That cannot happen. So you consult your lawyer, and if possible, take your lawyer with you to the police station.
True. So, what are the various practices that a doctor can adopt in order to be prepared to defend himself or herself against allegations of medical negligence?
That's actually a very good point you raised, Ron. What happens is, uh, now I can only speak for Delhi. Delhi, because I work with these hospitals very closely in Delhi, I can tell you that they have a very robust system of record keeping, maintaining the patient's records, the nursing notes, the OT notes, the discharge summary. All of these things should be kept in a safe space, and you should have backups at all time. क्योंकि इन सिचुएशंस में इट इज ओनली व्हाट यू आर सेइंग इन दीज नर्सिंग नोट्स या डिस्चार्ज समरी या ओटी नोट्स दैट कैन सब्सटैंशिएट योर क्लेम, है ना. दूसरी बात होती है कम्युनिकेशन. नाउ आई अंडरस्टैंड इट्स वेरी इजी फॉर अ लॉयर टू टेल डॉक्टर्स कि आप अपने पेशेंट्स के साथ कम्युनिकेट करें, especially for doctors who are manning emergency rooms, who are manning the ICUs. You can't sit down or you can't spend 10 minutes with a patient explaining to him or her what the situation is or what the situation demands. However, it is always preferable that a doctor spend a little time with each patient or the patient's family, depending on the situation of the patient, कि ये डायग्नोसिस है, हम इसको इस तरीके से ट्रीट करना चाह रहे हैं. और जो आपकी कंसेंट्स हैं रोहन, वो आप explicitly consents लें. Now the law discusses three kinds of consents. One is an implied consent, one is an informed consent, and one is a real consent. Now for a layman ये सारी बातें सेम लग रही होंगी, पर a consent is an implied consent is कि let us say for example एक पेशेंट डेंटिस्ट के पास गया और वो डेंटिस्ट की चेयर पे जाके बैठ गया, तो एक ये इम्प्लाइड कंसेंट है कि जो डेंटिस्ट है वो उस पेशेंट के दांतों को चेक करेगा, अपना कंसल्टेशन देगा. दैट इज कॉल्ड एन इम्प्लाइड कंसेंट. नाउ एंड इन्फॉर्म्ड कंसेंट इज समथिंग, no sorry, a real consent is something that was developed in the UK. This says that this consent necessarily needs to be given voluntarily by the patient without any sort of coercion. Coercion का मतलब किसी जोर जबरदस्ती के बिना पेशेंट अपने आप से वॉलंटरीली ये कंसेंट देता है. दूसरा, जब वो ये कंसेंट दे रहा है तो वो जानता है इट इज अ कॉम्पिटेंट, ही और शी इज अ कॉम्पिटेंट पेशेंट टू अंडरस्टैंड the risks involved while giving that consent. And the third thing is, in order for him to give that consent, the patient should have adequate information by the doctor. तो जब जब भी आप कोई सर्जिकल प्रोसीजर करते हैं, कोई डायग्नोस्टिकल प्रोसीजर करते हैं, तो आप पेशेंट के साथ, it is obviously mandatory that you take a consent from the patient, but you not only spend a minute or two with the patient, or your staff or the junior staff or the nurses spend some time with the patient and tell them that these are the risks involved, all right, but this is necessary because of XYZ reasons. और एक और चीज जो मैं हमेशा अपने डॉक्टर्स से कहता हूं कि जो भी आप कंसेंट ले रहे हैं, क्योंकि ये सारे बॉयलर प्लेट कंसेंट फॉर्म्स होते हैं जो हॉस्पिटल के या नर्सिंग होम्स के बने होते हैं, आप पेशेंट को देते हैं, पेशेंट साइन कर देता है, बाद में कहता है जी मेरे को तो पता नहीं था क्या लिखा हुआ उसमें. सो व्हाट यू डू इज यू take a written statement from the patient saying that I have been consulted by the doctor or by his staff or by the hospital staff, and they have told me that these are my risks and this is why I should get the surgery done. A very small paragraph in the writing, handwritten note of the patient, that goes a long way. Or देखो यार, आई अंडरस्टैंड, नो डॉक्टर गेट्स अप इन द मॉर्निंग एंड सेज आज मैं कुछ नेग्लिजेंट करूंगा, आज किसी पेशेंट की जिंदगी खराब करूंगा। ये चीजें होती हैं, ठीक है ना? नोबडी इज परफेक्ट, नाइदर आर डॉक्टर्स, नोबडी इज। सो whenever something wrong happens, do not, again I go back to my first point, do not panic, consult a lawyer, and then try and manage those things in as transparent manner as possible.
Okay. You actually covered my next question, which was like, what are the different types of consent? So great. I want to ask one more question: that why is there is a rise in violence against doctor? How can this violence be addressed and minimized according to you? Because you are seeing so much of medical legal cases and doing such cases. What are your opinion in this topic?
uh, Rohan, what's happened is, and especially after COVID, people have become very trigger happy. ठीक है? It is very easy to actually blame the doctor. अब कोविड में क्या हो रहा था, और वो स्पेशली सर्कमस्टांसेस ऐसे थे कि nobody knew what was actually happening, right? Nobody actually knew what was happening inside the hospital or inside the ICU. किसी को नहीं पता था. तो it is very easy to actually blame the doctor कि जी डॉक्टर ने कुछ गलती करी होगी इसलिए हमारा पेशेंट चला गया. ठीक है? और the sentiments of the society also turned against the doctors, which is alien to my mind. Doctors were actually the frontline workers during COVID. But for some odd reason, people started blaming doctors for everything. Every small infraction that happened, people started blaming the doctors. Now, ऐसा नहीं है कि कोविड से पहले ऐसा नहीं होता था, बिकॉज अब किसी का अगर बंदा जाता है रोहित, अगर किसी का कोई रिलेटिव गया है, किसी का बच्चा गया है, किसी वाइफ गई है, किसी का हस्बैंड गया है, तो अंडरस्टैंडेबली हर आदमी परेशान होगा. दे विल बी एंग्शियस, दे विल बी एंग्री, एंड देर इज वेरी लिटिल विगल रूम कि वो अपने इस एंगर को, इस एंग्विश को कहीं और डायरेक्ट कर सके. तो वो डॉक्टर की तरफ डायरेक्ट हो जाता था, और ये कोविड के बाद और बढ़ गया. Although there are several laws, surprisingly, Rohan, if I'll tell you, most states in the country, and there is a central law that protects violence against doctors. I'm not talking about the Epidemic Act. I'm talking about actual prevention of violence against. I'll tell you what the exact name is. It's called. Very well. It's got a very long name. I'll come to it in a minute. Most states have a act or a statute that prevents violence against doctors. Surprisingly, neither do the doctors nor the police officers actually know about it. Very recently, we were handling a case in Punjab where a patient had passed away, and the family of the patient and जो उनके पिंड के लोग थे, the villagers near the people of the villages nearby, they came to the hospital and they started banging up the hospital. They started destroying equipment, furniture. They started attacking the building of the hospital. In fact, at one point, the doctor was also held at ransom. Now the doctor called me, he said, "Sir, मैं क्या करूं, मुझे नहीं समझ आ रही है." And then I told him that, in Punjab, there is an actual act. You can go to the police, and if an FIR is registered and somebody is found guilty, they can be put in jail for about 6 months. And they can also be awarded damages. Now, neither did the doctor know about it. When I told the doctor went to the police station. The police officers didn't know about it. I actually had to send them the actual act to show to the police officers that they can file an FIR under this given law against the patient's family. So, इस बात की जो information है ना, और जो implementation है, that is lacking. Isliye it's very important that doctors know their rights. We all talk about duties of the doctor and duties of the hospital. And sure, many doctors also know about their rights as professionals, but most don't. और police officers को भी नहीं पता होता. So I think there is a dire need, maybe FIMA should take it up, that the police officers or the police establishment of these states should be given some detailed some orientation should be given to them as to how to handle cases against or by doctors within their medical or their professional field.
Okay. Coming to the last question of this session, any legal advice, any concluding sentence that you want to give to the lakhs of doctors who are viewing this, who is going to view this?
Sure. So, to doctors, I will say this. Um, we understand nobody actually wants to be negligent. Uh, as a lawyer who talks to doctors and who works with hospitals all across the country, I understand no doctor actually is guilty. In fact, I was reading a report very recently wherein some 200 cases of the National Consumer District Commission were considered, and it was found that about 50% of the cases that were filed, the doctors were found not guilty. The doctors were found not negligent, right? But what happens is, again, I go back, people don't know where to divert their anger, their sadness, their anguish. So they find the easiest target, and scrupulous lawyers like us don't actually help the cause. हमारे पास कोई पेशेंट आता है, मैं नहीं कह रहा सारे वकील ऐसे होते हैं, बट कई वकील ऐसे भी होते हैं जो वो कहते हैं कि आप हमारे पास आइए, हम आपको कॉम्पनसेशन दिला देंगे, हम उस डॉक्टर को देख लेंगे, एंड दे ट्राई एंड टैप इनटू दैट anguish of the patient, which spirals down, and the doctor starts thinking कि यार मैं तो कुछ कर ही नहीं सकता. I have had so many discussions and orientations with doctors and so many conferences where doctors say that now we are scared. We are actually scared of operating on patients because we don't know. Now, medicine is not a accurate science, right? Anything can go wrong at any given point. And not every time is it within the realm of the doctor's competence, or in fact even possible for the doctor to foresee or tackle these things. तो आप अपने आप से बेस्ट कोशिश करें. द लॉ डज नॉट डिमांड यू टू बी द बेस्ट डॉक्टर. द लॉ डज नॉट expect you to be the worst doctor. The law expects you to be reasonably competent. एवरेज कॉम्पिटेंसी जो एक डॉक्टर की आपके स्टैचर के या आपके एक्सपीरियंस के डॉक्टर की होनी चाहिए, वो एक्सपेक्ट करता है लॉ आपसे. तो आप वो मेंटेन करके रखें. आप अपने प्रोटोकॉल्स को फॉलो करें. Follow your protocols to the T, because these protocols laid down by the world organizations, the Indian organizations are there for a reason. ये सारी चीजें कंसिडर करने के बाद ही होती. अगर आप ये कहें कि मैंने अपने पेशेंट को एज पर द गिवन प्रोटोकॉल, प्रिस्क्राइब प्रोटोकॉल ट्रीट किया है, देयर इज नो वे that the court or the police or the medical commissions or the state medical councils should come to a finding that you've been negligent. And keep an open mind. Do not get anxious. Do not panic. Talk to your lawyers. Give your lawyers the same amount of faith you expect your patients to give you. Because as like a doctor does not necessarily like a patient who goes on Google before meeting the doctor and saying कि जी डॉक्टर साहब मेरे को ये तो नहीं है, मेरे को वो तो नहीं है, मेरे को ऐसे तो नहीं है, वैसे तो नहीं है. Lawyers at the same end do not like or do not appreciate when a patient or a client tells them कि जी मेरे को ना ऐसे अपने आप को डिफेंड करना है. आपका काम नहीं है यार. आपका काम है आप लोगों को ट्रीट करो, वो अच्छे से करो, बाकी सब ठीक हो.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. I completely agree with this, that first of all it is important to understand that we all are humans. We don't want to be negligent per se, but sometimes things happen which are not in control of the doctors or anyone. So in such cases we should be very judicious and understand our right and involve legal team whenever necessary, because I feel personally that it is a kind of mental harassment to the doctors, because we rarely know our rights. We don't know what is our rights. We don't know the exact parameters of the law, and we get stuck and we think that something terrible is going to happen. So it's better to consult the legal teams. I thank you once again, Mr. Karanjot Singh Mainee, advocate in the Supreme Court and the Delhi High Court, for joining with us today.
Never miss a medical update from Medical Dialogues. Like, subscribe, and press the bell icon.